All right, let's jump right into this explainer. You know, when we crack open corporate reports, we're usually hunting for the really obvious numbers, right? But today, we're actually going to look at some hidden financial hazards that are just lurking in the construction materials sector. It's an often overlooked sustainability metric, but it's a huge deal.
So let me ask you something. Is sustainability really just about the environment? I mean, for a lot of us, that word instantly brings up greenhouse gases, water usage, recycling, the usual suspects. And hey, those are absolutely critical. But true sustainability reporting? It goes way deeper. It actually looks at the fundamental governance and ethical behavior of a company. Think about it. If a business isn't playing by the rules of the market, its financial future is anything but sustainable.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll quickly cover the SASB standards overview, look at construction materials industry risks, dive into the pricing integrity standard, talk about tracking monetary losses, and finish up with context and corrective actions.
Okay, let's start with the big picture so we really understand the rules of the game here. Section 1, the SASB Standards Overview and the Regulatory Framework.
Now, this perfectly captures the authority behind the metrics we're dissecting today. The SASB standards are now part of the IFRS Foundation. What we're talking about is a set of 77 industry-specific sustainability accounting standards. And what makes them so powerful is that they're specifically designed to help investors understand the sustainability-related risks that hit where it hurts, an entity's cash flows, its access to finance, or its cost of capital. So we aren't just talking about feel-good metrics here. We are talking about hard, cold data that impacts the bottom line.
All right, let's narrow our focus to the specific industry we're analyzing today. Section 2, Industry Risks in Construction Materials. So the construction materials industry is just this massive, globally operating sector. We're talking about the companies producing the literal building blocks of our world, you know? Cement, aggregates, glass, plastics, insulation, the whole shebang. And naturally, because they're operating heavy machinery like massive kilns, they use a significant amount of direct fossil fuels. They have huge environmental footprints. But while investors rightly fixate on the cost of emissions regulations, there are these critical hidden governance risks that investors absolutely must track just as closely. See, because of the nature of these localized, really high-volume markets, the temptation for anti-competitive behavior is a totally real, well-documented hazard. Which brings us to a really interesting pivot, moving from those expected green metrics to the unexpected topic of market behavior. Section 3, Pricing Integrity, the Ethical Standard. What's genuinely fascinating to me here is how the SASB standard explicitly lists pricing integrity and transparency right alongside product innovation. I mean, it basically proves that fair business practices are tracked and categorized exactly like environmental impacts. This is metric EMCM 52A.1, and its inclusion is a huge deal. It tells us that for construction materials, ethical pricing isn't just some legal compliance checkbox, it's actually a core sustainability pillar.
Unfortunately, the construction materials market has definitely seen its fair share of anti-competitive behavior. Things like artificially high prices maintained through cartel activity. And let me tell you, when companies get caught manipulating prices, the financial blowback is severe. We're looking at material legal fines, significant business disruptions, super intense scrutiny and delays if they try any mergers and acquisitions, and vastly increased compliance costs moving forward. I mean, these are massive, massive hits to a company's cash flow and cost of capital.
So let's move on and see how this builds into exactly how a company has to track and report these financial hits. Section 4, Tracking Losses and Quantifying Damage.
Okay, the absolutely crucial point here is the specific wording of this accounting metric. SASB metric EMCM 528.1 explicitly requires entities to disclose the total amount of monetary losses incurred during the reporting period as a result of legal proceedings tied to cartel activities, price fixing, and antitrust violations. It basically demands complete transparency regarding any adjudicative proceeding. It doesn't matter if it happens before a court, a regulator, or an arbitrator. There is literally no sweeping this under the rug.
And to ensure total clarity and comparability for investors, this is a purely quantitative metric. The total loss has to be presented as an aggregate monetary value, specifically in the entity's presentation currency. This gives a stark, undeniable number to the actual financial damage caused by that anti-competitive behavior.
But what exactly makes up that total number, right? Well, the distinction here is incredibly important. The standard strictly tracks the actual liabilities and penalties paid out. So, included in that number are things like fines, civil or criminal judgments, settlements, penalties, restitution, and disgorgement. But, and this is key, it deliberately excludes the legal fees and other expenses the entity incurred just to defend itself.
By stripping away those legal defense costs, the metric isolates the actual penalty of the bad behavior. It prevents the true cost of the violation from getting muddied up by exorbitant lawyer fees.
And let me tell you, the net they cast to capture these monetary losses is exceptionally wide. The required disclosures cover a really broad sweep of proceedings. We're talking civil actions brought by anyone, whether that's governments, other businesses, or even private individuals. It includes regulatory proceedings that result in penalties or restitution, and of course, criminal actions. Essentially, if a company has to pay out because they fixed prices or operated a cartel, it absolutely must be reported under this metric.
Finally, we reach the resolution of our funnel today. Because, as you might guess, simply reporting a financial loss isn't enough for proper sustainability reporting. Section 5, Context and Actions, Correcting the Course.
Look, a standalone number, even a really big one, only tells half the story. The SASB standards include a specific note that entities have to provide a brief narrative describing the exact nature and context of the loss. Investors need to know what happened. Was this a judgment issued after a long trial? Was it a settlement just to avoid court, a guilty plea, or maybe a deferred or non-prosecution agreement? Providing this context ensures that investors aren't just seeing a random financial dip on a spreadsheet, they are fully understanding the specific antitrust or cartel activity that actually caused it.
And lastly, the standard demands accountability for the future. The reporting entity must detail the exact corrective actions they've implemented in response to those legal proceedings. It's not enough to just pay the fine and move on. How are they fixing the root problem? This could involve detailing actual changes in their day-to-day operations or processes. It might mean disclosing major management shifts or changes in the business partners they choose to work with. Or, it could be as straightforward as implementing new compliance training or technology. This is exactly how a company proves to its investors that they are seriously mitigating future regulatory risks.
So we've seen today that sustainability in the construction materials sector goes far, far beyond the smokestack. It goes straight into the boardroom and right into the pricing models. Ethical governance and fair pricing are the true, often unseen pillars of a genuinely sustainable business. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. If your own industry's pricing structures were subjected to this exact level of rigorous, transparent scrutiny, what hidden risks might suddenly come to light? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep asking the hard questions.